Hello and welcome to this week's casual review. I'm Fred. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. This week we're talking about Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2, and I really don't want to compare it to the original game, but I have to here because a lot of the things I like about this game and a lot of things I don't like about it are in relation to the original. And now I fully am aware and fully understand that The Force Unleashed 2 was developed as a blatant cash grab to capitalize on the success of the first game. I am also aware that it was developed on a time crunch. Believe me, that particular fact is certainly apparent with this game. Uh, so let's get right down to it. Gameplay wise, it's a much more streamlined and linear experience in comparison to the original. The combat is a lot more intuitive, and you really almost, for the most part, don't really have to think. There are very few enemies that blatantly warrant you wanting to use the force grab to uh, to do anything unique against them. In one case, you got one giant droid enemy that has. You have a couple of different droid enemies that have shields. It's just like, okay, it's like force grab, smash the button, strip on the shield, rush in, melee it, force lightning, blah blah blah, and then get to the quick time event that you finish him off. Wash, rinse, repeat on several droid enemies here, as case in point here, as I'm talking about that. There is a nice variety of enemies, but for the most part, you don't. You got your standard stormtroopers, you got snipers, you got jet troopers, you have some enemies that cloak and rush you. You got the little spider enemies that can rush up on you, group up on you at a certain point. You got like a couple of segments involving TIE fighters for you to grab and hurl into one another. It's like, but at the same time, it also feels like it feels like there was no effort really put into the various enemies that you face in comparison to the first game, which felt like it had a nice variety. The boss battles in the Force Unleashed 2, default game, there is only one memorable boss battle, and it's against the Gorgnak, the thing that eats the Rancor at the end of the second planet when you reunite with General Coda. It's like that huge thing. It was a memorable boss fight straight out of God of War. Uh, Other than that, there is not one memorable boss fight in the vanilla version of the game. All right, as in not talking about the Ewok the Endor DLC. All right, straight up with the game, the standard campaign of this game does not only has one memorable boss fight, where in comparison to the original, you had like at least a few memorable boss fights. Uh, that's like they were actual like duels with lightsabers. You go up against a couple of Jedi at different point. So like those boss fights were fun and and were engaging. That's not the case here with the Force Unleashed 2. It's like you get like uh, you get a couple of and the game is short. If you don't really have memorable boss battles, when the first game had you had the whole point of you're playing as a dude that's wielding lightsabers. You want to have lightsaber duels. So it again, that's an area where this game where the Force Unleashed 2 suffers. Visually, it looks better than the first game. That's an obvious technical standpoint. It sounds better. The sound mixing is a hell of a lot better than the first game. You can actually balance the audio in the options settings if you want to turn the music down, but or so you can hear the dialogue, what little of is of what little there is, and to put more emphasis on the sound effects. You can actually like the sound mixing is pretty solid with the Force Unleashed 2. So okay, there's a point. That's a point. That's a point in its favor there. And all the voice acting is relatively solid. I have no complaints on that. No one sounds particularly wooden, and but again, that is a credit to like uh LucasArts and Lucas Gaming in general, is that there was always an effort in terms of making sure the sound quality is always good, or was always good in everything that that they developed in house. Oh boy. And so let's get down and talk to you about this game's length. Its standard campaign, five and a half, about 5.5 hours, give or take. All right, and I'm counting that to trying to factoring in anytime I pause a game, took breaks, or was just engaging with with the chat regarding the two over the course of the two streams that was dedicated to this game. Now, the first game also had only two streams dedicated to it, but you know what? That took about took me about 7.5 hours to get through. It's like that. So its sequel is shorter in comparison to the original. That ain't good, as far as I'm concerned, because my expectations with a sequel game is for it to be bigger or better in very significant ways in comparison to the original game. It's why I have a big fondness for Mass Effect 2 in comparison to the original Mass Effect, because it does a lot of things better than the original game. It streamlined where it needed to, but in terms of actual content, it's not a shorter gameplay experience. It's on par. If you're as thorough as I am, it was on a standard playthrough of it. It's like you got like enough enjoyment from Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2. I can't say that here because with the Force Unleashed in comparison to with the Force Unleashed 2 in comparison to the original game, because it's a much shorter experience, a substantially shorter experience. Right. Its story, what little of it there is enough doubt there regarding were we actually playing as Starkiller or not. Was it truly a clone or not? Sure, you can say it's like it was, and you have all these failed clones, but when we saw all those clones in the Vader fight at the end of the game, and and the less said about the Darth Vader fight in this game, the better, by the way. Um, but like if was how many failed clones there were, it does raises a huge question on it. Are we playing as the original Starkiller or not? And I want to think that we are, because of the ending, the light side ending with Juno. So it's but again, it's just like you could say it's easily the clone that was able to retain enough of the original memories of Starkiller that were ingrained in him to basically be the reincarnated version of him. Again, take that for what it's worth. But a lot of the dialogue and the interactions that Starkiller has in this game with General Coda and Proxy leads to think that it's the original. There's just too much there to think that we were actually playing as a clone. But I do have a problem with the story, and that is how Juno basically is a damsel in distress. And sure, she gets a badass moment in taking a swing at Vader, but it is considering how she kind of is like your key companion character in the first game and how important she is to Starkiller's character development, it is very disappointing that her role is reduced to, again, just being, oh, she is going to be, Vader wants her kidnapped so she can lure Starkiller back to force him to bend to his will and so forth. And it is, you get a nice little payoff at the end with the light side ending, but at the same time, it was like, yeah, Juno was a bit of a badass, and it's like to see her role reduced in such a way was very disappointing. All right, so there you go. Now, there is one huge positive about this game, and the fact that it did have an extra mission that was available for as DLC. That being the aforementioned Endor mission, which is an alternative timeline telling, like Darth Vader has successfully cloned Starkiller, and he's sending him off to take care of missions. It's like Luke Skywalker is dead. Leia takes up the mantle and becomes a Jedi, and you are basically running through Endor. You get to punt Ewoks, which was actually quite funny. And slaughter not just you're slaughtering not just rebel forces and Ewoks, but you're also slaughtering your own men as like stormtroopers too. You can say that they are in the way, but you um and you're this basic, and you come up to having a battle against Han Solo and Chewbacca, where Chewbacca meets a rather grim, where they both meet their a rather grim ending, which was badly animated. It's like with the gun, the Hans blaster not really being in his hand and things being poorly framed, that kind of took away from that moment. But the real payoff here is you're chasing Princess Leia through the bunker, ripping through all the forces in it to have the showdown with her, and that boss fight, and that fight there, the duel with Princess Leia is awesome in comparison to the Darth Vader fight in the main game. Is like it is incredible in terms of it. Yes, there are quick time events and stuff that take place during it at certain points, but you know what? It is a lot more fun. It is a lot more engaging than the Vader fight, without question. It's like it is a straight up duel, and it's and then Leia gets her holds her own very well. It's like one can safely say that it's like if they went with alternate endings on the for the Endor DLC, that it would have been pretty cool to say it's like, oh, Leia defeats Starkiller and the rebels are successful. Other than the fact that you get like Palpatine gloating that, yes, that Vader, I know about your plans of betraying me and so forth and yada yada yada. So it is clearly non-canon that Starkiller sides with Vader in any circumstances to be on the dark side. So, but anyway. So this raises the question there: do I recommend this game? If you play the original Force Unleashed game, I would say play the sequel, play the Force Unleashed 2. Just don't pay full price for it. The game has gone on sale more than enough times, and as long as it's still listed, if you see it on sale, get it. Get the achievements for it. If you're on the like consoles, like play through it. Take it for what it is. It just is a much shorter and many, in some ways, disappointing sequel, but at the same time, it is fun if you're just looking for a short action game. Again, just don't pay full price for it, and also make sure you get the Endor DLC, because that will at least provide, because the Princess Leia fight is something you would want to play. So, but don't pay, but again, catch it on sale. Don't pay full price for it. Um, so it's that's kind of like what my standing is on it. Would I play this again? At this point, my only real incentive to play it again is simply do the dark side ending, and I didn't notice if this game had a chapter select to where I can just like go and just do the slog that is the Vader fight again. But if it, but by and large, it's not a game that I will play again. I'm glad I played it once, but it's not a game I don't feel I'm going to ever touch again. Under unless I really need something just to fill a Saturday night for like a 6 hour stream because that's kind of like my viewpoint with this game. Anyway, that'll wrap this up. Thank you very much. Tighten your friendship bracelet. Stay safe. We'll see y'all in the next video. Bye.